Frasier episode 9 begins with Freddie returning home to his apartment with date Nicole, and she is impressed with his plush living arrangements, despite his being a firefighter. Freddie is keen to go upstairs with her, but she continues to admire the apartment and wants to drink some posh wine she sees. Freddie has to admit he lives with his father and that a lot of this stuff is his. Nicole assumes Freddie's father is old and needs help, and that's why he lives with him. Freddie plays along and makes out his father is in need of help and in his final years. He says he hardly gets out of bed anymore, and this statement is interrupted by Frasier returning home after a birding trip. He says he'll grab a nightcap and head up to bed. Freddie says Frasier's mind has gone before his body and continues to keep up the facade. Frasier reveals that he teaches at Harvard, which makes Nicole doubt Freddie's story. Frasier is catching on to what is going on, so Freddie follows him upstairs and explains the situation. Frasier comes back down and plays along, and apologizes for his outburst. Frasier teases Freddie by claiming it's time for his bath, which he will need to help him with. The next day, Freddie tells Frasier that it's hard for him to explain to people that he's a grown man living with his father. Freddie wants to help out, so he's not relying on Frasier to look after him. Eve turns up and asks Freddie and Frasier if they want to see her new face cream. Freddie says they don't, and Eve says that's good because they can't, as someone stole it due to the buzzer in the apartment block being broken. Freddie offers to fix it, which Frasier agrees is a good idea. Frasier offers to pay Eve for the package, and when she sees his pile of cash she says it cost more than the initial $35 she said it was. Alan and Frasier are in their office when Olivia comes in telling Alan he has broken a new record. A fifth TA has quit working for Alan in just 5 months. Olivia says she's found one student to help him and turns out it's David, who then enters ready for work. Alan says he'll retire rather than have David work for him. Olivia is amused by the whole situation. David's first job is to clear the office of all the alcohol, which angers Alan. Freddie is fixing the buzzer in the apartments, and Frasier turns up to thank him. Freddie leaves for his work shift, saying he's left a hole in the wall in their apartment, as there's a trace to a leak that needs sorting. Freddie says he'll fix it later when he returns from work. Frasier is horrified when he sees the hole in the wall and screams, which leads to Eve running into his apartment with a baseball bat, thinking Frasier is being attacked. She tells him all he needs is a tiny poster of Rita Hayworth to cover the hole, a funny little reference to the Shawshank Redemption. Eve leaves, and Frasier tries to distract himself from the hole by sitting down and reading a book. However, he can't get his mind off it. David turns up at Alan's office for work. Alan says it's time for David to walk his cat, who has fleas. David says the TA handbook forbids personal errands. Alan says personal errands are encouraged and sends him the link to the rules, which he is literally writing at that moment. David falls for it. Alan says he loves Lucky Charms but hates the marshmallows in them and wants David to separate them as one of his jobs. A handyman turns up to fix the leak at Frasier and Freddie's apartment. Frasier wants him to find the source of the leak to point Freddie in the right direction. Freddie gets home early from work to finish the leak, which leaves Frasier trying to keep him from seeing the handyman. The handyman comes down the stairs, and Frasier tells Freddie the man is his colleague, and the handyman plays along. He says he works with Frasier and pretends to be a psychology professor, and he's surprisingly convincing. Frasier tries to usher the handyman away, but Freddie tricks him into revealing he's actually a plumber. Frasier reveals he wanted to take the job off his plate and wants to take care of him rather than the other way around. When Frasier lifts a plant and hurts his knee, the handyman says he could pretend to be a doctor. Frasier sits down to rest his knee. Freddie offers to get him an ice pack, but Frasier declines. Freddie says he won't try to help him in future and heads off, saying he left the fridge door open but says Frasier doesn't need his help so can get to it and close it. The fridge starts beeping, and Frasier calls Alan to get his help. David answers the phone as he's screening his calls, and he agrees to come and help. Freddie goes to see Eve to complain about his father not asking for help. Eve says Freddie is smug when he's right, and this could be why Frasier doesn't ask for help. Eve also reveals she has received her face cream. Turns out the delivery day was wrong. But she's happy because she has pocketed Frasier's money and gotten a refund to boot. She then reluctantly gives Frasier's money back to Freddie. The beeping continues in the apartment. David arrives and prepares for Alan's arrival by getting his teacup out. He really is Alan's new slave. Alan turns up and takes a seat. He orders David to go get Frasier an ice pack. Alan says Frasier is too proud to accept help from Freddie. Frasier says that's not correct. Alan then says it's because he doesn't want to turn into his father. Wrong again. Frasier reveals it's because he knows he'll never live up to his father's standards. He says his father was always there for him and he could never repay him, despite moving in with him all those years ago. Alan says it's because he doesn't want to burden Freddie because he was never there for him. Frasier says that's what it is, and Alan is delighted to finally be right. Alan says he better go now as his cat needs his eye drops. Frasier asks David to get him his Stephen Sondheim book before he leaves, and he gets him a Susan Sontag book instead, which winds Frasier up. He tries to get up, hops and falls again, hurting his other knee. Freddie turns up and helps him up. Frasier finally admits he needs his son's help. Freddie thanks him and says he's sorry he doesn't feel valued. Frasier agrees to let Freddie patch the wall up. Nicole turns up saying she left her scarf at the apartment. Freddie says he's sorry about the other night. She questions whether he was telling the truth about his father, and on cue, Frasier plays along that he's losing it by saying he was attacked by robots to keep Freddie in with Nicole. Nicole admits she was wrong about the situation and asks him if he wants to grab a drink at the weekend. Score. Frasier then grabs a banana pretending he thinks it's a phone, in one final ploy to convince Nicole. When she leaves, he says he thinks she's great, but he's not doing this routine forever. At the end of the episode, Alan walks into his office to find David sorting his Lucky Charms. Alan finds a stray marshmallow and gets David to start all over again. The episode review. Wow! What a funny and sweet episode. Freddie tries to bring a date home, but he is embarrassed that he lives with his father. This brings up some issues between father and son that are explored in a brilliant way in this episode. The chemistry between Grammer and Cutmore Scott as Frasier and Freddie is so strong in this episode, and has been throughout this revival series. David also has some funny things to do this week as he becomes Alan's TA. Nicholas Lyndhurst continues to provide excellent support with some brilliantly funny moments. Overall, this is the standout episode of the series so far.